The LA Kings bounce back from a meltdown in San Jose to knock off the top team in the NHL. We've got the breakdown, analysis, and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we're on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. You can enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Thanksgiving. The LA Kings played game number 23 of the NHL season at home against the top team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, Wednesday night. Kings looking to bounce back from that embarrassing 7-2 loss in San Jose on Monday, where the Kings allowed 5 third-period goals, including 3 in a 3-minute span to open up the third period. As for the Kings lineup, and not surprising under head coach Jim Hiller, after a disappointing performance, or if he feels that things need to be shaken up, he is not shy about moving things around, and we would have a completely different setup, at least to start the game for the LA Kings as far as what the lines looked like. The top line would still have Anze Kopitar at center with Adrian Kempe on the wing, but Warren Foegele would join them on the top line. He was moved in that game against the Sharks to the top line, and so this was the first time, though, all season that he started with Kopitar and Kempe. The second line was centered by Quinton Byfield, and Tanner Jeannot moved up to the second line, along with Trevor Moore. We've seen Quinton Byfield play on the wing on the top line. We've seen him center the third line. This is the first time this season that he has been penciled in as the second line center. Samuel Hellenius was the third line center, at least on paper, to start the game, with Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. And Phillip Danault was dropped down as the fourth line center, again, at least on paper, to start the game. Trevor Lewis and Alex Turcotte also dropped down to the fourth line. The explanation that was given on the game broadcast by Jim Fox is that Jim Hiller wanted a strong forechecker on each line. So that would be Warren Foegele on the Kopitar line, Tanner Jeannot on the Byfield line, Alex Laferriere on the Hellenius line, and Alex Turcotte on the Danault line. As for the defense, it would be the same as we've seen the last few games. Mikey Anderson with Vladislav Gavrikov. We had Joel Edmondson with Brandt Clark, and Jacob Movarar with Jordan Spence. David Riddick once again in net, although we have heard Darcy Kemper is back skating. So good sign to get Darcy Kemper back at some point in the near future. Eric Portillo would serve as the backup. We may see Eric coming up here in the next couple of games, but that is looking forward. As for the game against the Winnipeg Jets, how did it go? It went great for the LA Kings. Kings got off to exactly the start they were looking for. Less than 2 minutes into the game, they get a power play and score. Anze Kopitar winning the draw cleanly back to Adrian Kempe. He puts the shot on net. The captain goes to the net after winning the faceoff. He and Quinton Byfield are right there, and Captain Kopitar deflects it into the net, and the Kings grab the all-important 1-0 lead. That will be the score after the opening period. LA would make it a 2-0 lead in the second. Phillip Danault would get the goal on a great second chance opportunity following up his own shot. Ex-King Gabe Velarde would answer for Winnipeg with a power play goal, but the Kings still had a 2-1 lead going into the third period. In the third, Kevin Fiala would score on a put the puck on net shot, and good things will happen goal. That made it 3-1, and then Adrian Kempe would seal it with an empty net goal. The Kings beat the number one team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, 4-1 in a convincing win for the LA Kings. Checking the game stats in this one. Shots on goal heavily favoring the LA Kings, 33-14. Wow. I don't know which one's more impressive, getting the 13 shots on goal or holding the Jets to just 14. I'm going to go with 14, holding the Jets, the top team in the NHL, who are averaging over 30 shots on goal per game, to only 14 was amazing. The Jets had 5 shots on goal in the first, 7 in the second, and 2 in the third period. We also looked at the special teams as being very important, with Winnipeg holding the number 1 power play in the NHL. Now, they did get their lone goal on the power play. They were 1 for 3, but the Kings were 1 for 2. So you'd have to say, as far as special teams go, it was even, and that's good for the Kings. Faceoffs won favored LA 30-27. Hits favored the Kings 32-18. And block shots favored the Kings 13-12. We talked about our 3 keys to a Kings win on our Wednesday preview show. Number 1 for me was stay out of the box. The Kings were taking on the top power play in the NHL. Now, the Kings didn't completely stay out of the penalty box, but they took 3 penalties. I had mentioned 2 or less would be ideal, so 3 not bad. There was a penalty called, which resulted in a penalty shot that we'll talk about in a minute. So I guess technically the Kings did take 4 penalties, but the Jets had 3 power plays, scored on 1. So good enough job by the Kings of staying out of the box. They could have cleaned that up if we want to really nitpick, but not too bad for the Kings. Go to the net was my second key for the Kings to win. Connor Hellebuyck is one of the top goalies in the NHL. He's the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. But as I said, just like all goalies, he's susceptible to allowing goals on shots he can't see. He's a goalie like they all are. Doesn't want traffic in front, doesn't want screens, deflections, all that kind of stuff. Well, the Kings did a terrific job of going to the net and getting shots on net. They missed a lot of shots against the San Jose Sharks shooting wide. This was get it on net. Don't worry if he's going to make the save, but be there for a rebound, get traffic in front. All 3 goals for the Kings came with players around the net. The Kings were fantastic with that. The third key I had was take advantage of your chances. If the Kings got any odd man rushes or breakaways, they needed to convert against the Jets. The Kings actually didn't really have many odd man rushes. What they had was a lot of volume of shots and a lot of going to the net, although the Kings did take advantage of that power play early on, so that was taking advantage of an opportunity. So the Kings can pretty much check all the boxes, at least for me, as far as their keys to victory. So what was good from a Kings team standpoint? We'll talk more about the individuals coming up, but pretty much everything. Great forechecking, great back checking, getting pucks on net, getting traffic around the goaltender, getting through the neutral zone, keeping the Jets from entering the Kings zone easily. They got a power play goal, killed off, for the most part, the Jets' power play opportunities. It was 3 very solid periods all around for the LA Kings, something we've seen from time to time, but when you consider the opponent, when you consider the Kings' last game, for the Kings to come out and do what they did against the Jets, obviously incredibly encouraging and just a great, great win. What was not so good from an LA standpoint team-wise? Well, not much. You really have to look for something that wasn't great. I guess there were certainly a few penalties the Kings could have cleaned up. Now, Tanner Jeannot took a penalty that directly stopped a scoring chance, and Brandt Clark was called, well, I thought, for a ridiculous penalty shot when coming from behind with a little slash on Rasmus Kupari. That's not a penalty shot awarded type of foul in my opinion. But now both of those fouls occurred because the Kings allowed a Winnipeg player to get into a dangerous scoring situation. Now, those are the penalties you want to take if you're going to take them. But again, looking for something that was not great from a team standpoint. There were a couple of chances the Jets got that resulted in the Kings having to take penalties. The Kings were able to kill one of them off, but not the other one. Well, actually, the other one was a penalty shot, and David Riddick made the stop on it. But you really have to look for something bad from a team standpoint in this win over the Winnipeg Jets, because it was a lot of good. As far as the quote of the game, it comes from Kings head coach Jim Hiller. Talked about the Kings bouncing back from that loss against the Sharks. He said, quote, "I don't know if it's a lesson. I don't know what it is, but it's an example maybe of how good we can be. It's hard to be really good like that night after night. It's 82 games in a season, but it gives us an example of what is possible if we all play together a certain style of play," end quote. And that's my big takeaway from this game. It's an example of what the Kings can do when they're playing together and the right way. This was the Kings' best win of the season. not only because of the all-around performance, but because of who the opponent was and the circumstances of when the game was played right after a terrible game against the Sharks, or at least a terrible third period. The Kings needed to respond. They needed to show some grit and heart, and they did. Now, I said after the embarrassing loss to San Jose that one loss, we shouldn't overreact to it, right? It doesn't mean the Kings are, the worst team in the NHL. And the same applies for this one. As great as a win as this was for the Kings, and it was a great win, you don't overreact to it, though. And I don't think, frankly, a lot of Kings fans are. This doesn't mean the Kings are going to win the Stanley Cup. But call it what it is, a great all-around game. I would say the best game of the year, again, considering the circumstances and the opponent. But just like it was silly to say the Kings are garbage after that loss to the Sharks, it's ridiculous to say that they're great after one great win. If they lose to the Ducks on Friday, certainly takes a lot of the luster off this victory. I don't think it completely discounts it, but look, we know what the issue is for the LA Kings. It's not that they aren't good, and it's not that they can't be very good at times. It's that they need to be consistent. And we haven't seen that so far this year. They haven't won 3 games in a row this season. Now, again, they have the blueprint for how they can play and how they need to play. Gritty, up-tempo. There was an intensity to that game against the Jets. And I do think if you're looking bigger picture, this is a good example of what playoff hockey is all about. And, the additions the Kings made in the offseason was with that in mind. Once the Kings get in the playoffs, if they do, there's a certain style they need to play. And this was it. This is playoff hockey the Kings played against the Winnipeg Jets. So if you're looking big picture, they certainly have proven that they are pretty good at that style of play, being gritty, being defensive-minded, going to the net, getting shots on net. That's a lot of what playoff hockey is all about. But again, just like in the regular season, in the playoffs, the teams that advance are the teams that can do that more often than not. Be consistent. Kings haven't been that this year. They need to be that. They need to show that they can play this style and this well as a team more often than not. It's not going to be every night. They're not going to win every game. But this type of hockey, this type of effort, this type of execution, they've got it in them. They've proven it against the best team in the league. Now they need to do it more often than not, night in and night out. Up next, the Kings. We're going to talk about which players deserve credit in the win over the Jets. It's pretty much all of them. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It is Thanksgiving Day. It's about football. Well, it's about family and food too, but it's a lot about football. You've got the Lions hosting the Bears. Detroit is a 9.5-point favorite. Cowboys host the Giants. Dallas a 3.5-point favorite. And the Packers host the Dolphins. Green Bay, 3.5-point favorite. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And those of us that live here in Southern California, so lucky to have so many opportunities to see so many live events. Sports, yes, of course. I will be at the Rose Bowl this coming Saturday to see my beloved alma mater, Fresno State, take on UCLA in football. And I got my tickets through Gametime. But it's not just about sports. We've got theater events, comedy shows, and, of course, concerts, too. And Gametime has tickets to whatever you're into. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets even easier, and you can save more. The feature shows you the total up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you see what the seat's going to look like, the view's going to look like. You get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, let's get into some of the Kings' individual performers against the Jets. And honestly, I could name off pretty much the entire team. It was that good of a team win. But we'll start in net, as we usually do, with David Riddick, a former Jet I had forgotten. Didn't get called upon a lot in this game to have to make a lot of great saves, which was a little bit surprising. But the Kings did an amazing job in shot suppression and blocking shots. Only 14 shots on net for the Winnipeg Jets, and David Riddick stopped 13 of them. His biggest save, though, was on former King Rasmus Kupari on a penalty shot. Riddick has been a rock on home ice this year. He's now 8-6 overall in the season, but at home, David Riddick 5-1 with a 1.41 goals against average and a 935 save percentage. Big Save Dave has been his biggest on home ice, and a solid game from David Riddick against the Jets. I would have thought that the Kings, to beat the Jets, would have really needed something extraordinary from Quinton Byfield and Kevin Fiala. That really wasn't the case, but they were certainly both positives in this game. Quinton Byfield brought the energy, as he usually does. He was around the net a lot. He was in front of the net along with Anze Kopitar on that first power play goal for the Kings. He was there for a deflection as well. He was good on the forecheck, as most of the Kings were, and no points, but was a positive. Kevin Fiala, was it good Kevin or bad Kevin? I'd have to say we had good Kevin in this one. He had a goal, his 8th of the season. It was just a shot with traffic in front and went off a Jets defender and in. But that's exactly what we're talking about. Have a shot mentality and get bodies in front of the net. And not only, is it a Kings player when they go to the net that has a chance to screen the goalie or get a deflection, you're also taking a defensive player with you. It's not just about the Kings player. You're getting a lot of traffic in front, and sometimes when you put shots on the net, good things happen. Puck luck, they like to call it, and it goes off a defender and in. That's what happened with Kevin Fiala. So certainly give him credit for that. Good shot on goal. Didn't take a penalty. Didn't have any unforced errors or forced passes and turnovers. So good Kevin. Good enough Kevin, I guess we would say, in the win over Winnipeg. So I have to admit, I wasn't a huge fan of all of the lineup changes that Jim Hiller made, but we talked about it when he got hired. We talked about, I was looking for the Kings to bring in someone from outside the organization to have different views and different strategies and things like that. Well, we have to admit, I think Jim Hiller's done a great job. Some people disagree. And whether the hire was, whether you agree with the hire or not, what is the job he's done? And you have to say he's not afraid to make changes. He's not afraid to do something different, whether it's, 5 forwards on the power play or making a lot of different lineup changes. I know some people are like, oh, we can't get any chemistry, so keep doing this. Well, the players, I would think at this point, have gotten used to the fact that they could play anywhere at any time. And maybe that's a good thing. But like I said, there were some of the changes I was kind of like, what are we doing here? But you can't argue with the results. And it certainly got the job done. Now, Philip Deneau, when I saw he was centering the 4th line, that was the biggest head scratcher for me. Now that was on paper, right? That's what the projected lines were, or that's the listed lines were. In reality, Philip Deneau played 17 minutes and 7 seconds. He had more ice time than Quinton Byfield, who was centering the 2nd line. And Byfield, plays on the power play and kills penalties. So yes, Philip Deneau was technically the 4th line center, but in reality, he wasn't. He was probably honestly more like the 2nd line center, which he's been most of the year as far as his time on ice. Samuel Helenius was listed as 3rd line center. He played 3 minutes and 53 seconds. So in reality, he was the 4th line center. But anyway, I don't know if that demotion on paper was something to get Philip Deneau's attention. If it was, it worked because he played great, scored his 2nd goal of the season. Goal scoring, not necessarily something we're looking for from Philip Deneau, but certainly would like to see him be more productive from a number standpoint. Great pass from Alex Turcotte to set him up, and great job of Deneau sticking with it First save was made, followed up his shot, put in the rebound. Almost had another one go off his skate in the net because he was in front of the net, like a lot of Kings were. Deneau was a +2, 3 shots on goal. So good to see Philip Deneau have a nice game. Tanner Jeannot, that was another one where I was like, what is he? He's a fourth line guy. What is he doing up there? He had a great game. No points, but he was noticeable all game long. Terrific on the forecheck. Probably the Kings' best forechecker. Getting pucks in deep, hitting, going to the net. Again, no points, but I thought Tanner Jeannot probably had his best game as a King against Winnipeg. He really was noticeable. The Alex Laferriere talked about how he had cooled off of late. I thought he had a great game. Started the season obviously very strong, cooled off of late, but he was active. He was on the forecheck, made great passes, finished with 2 assists, and was a +2 and had 3 shots on goal with 4 hits. So great job by Alex Laferriere. Adrian Kempe was all over the ice, brought so much energy, had the empty net goal to seal it, his team leading 11th goal of the season, had an assist as well, 5 shots on goal to lead the team. And Anze Kopitar talked about how the captain needed to lead the team. He did, scored the all-important first goal on the power play, got the Kings off on the right foot, had a goal and an assist. Now a team leading 27 points in 23 games for Anze Kopitar. And Warren Foegele, no points, but all over the ice, credited with 4 hits. He's looked good regardless of where Jim Hiller has played him. It doesn't matter where you put Warren Foegele. You know what you're going to get. A lot of energy, a lot of effort. 9th different winger to play on the top line with Kopitar and Kempe so far this season. And as far as the defense, Brandt Clark, Vladislav Gavrikov, Joel Edmondson all had assists. Gavrikov was a +2. Clark continues to be more aggressive as a puck carrier and shooter as of late, which we saw more earlier in the year. So good to see him getting back to that. But solid D from all the blue liners as well. Add it all together and a great, great win. Individually and collectively for the LA Kings. So what is next for LA? And we have our 3 stars of the game. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. If you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Built if I were you. Here's the thing. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy, but we should also be earning points on rent, one of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. One of your biggest investments should get you more than just a roof over your head. Let me explain. There's no cost to join Built. As a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your Built points towards. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's join, Join, built, BILT.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points on your rent payments today. Well, we have our 3 stars of the game, and I apologize as I failed to transfer over my beautiful graphic that I made to share with you if you're watching on the YouTube channel. But I'm going to go with my number 3 star of the game. I'm going to go with Tanner Jeannot. Again, no points, but he was all over the ice. Just was a factor every time he was on there and did a great job. Anze Kopitar was our number 2 star of the game. Talked about it, a goal and an assist in the all-important first goal. And he was great in the face-off circle again. Won a lot of key face-offs for the LA Kings. My number 1 star, though, and again, there was a lot of guys you could have picked for the 3 stars, but I'm going to go with Alex Laferriere and his 2 assists. Again, thought he was just everywhere. Great on the forecheck, hitting, making plays. Thought he was real active and just a great all-around game. Alex Laferriere, the Kings' number 1 star for me in their win over Winnipeg, but it could have been a number of different players, and that is exactly what you're looking for. As to the Kings now, 12-8-3 on the season for 27 points in 23 games. The win moved the Kings back into 3rd place in the Pacific Division. They moved past Vancouver. They're 1 point back of Calgary for 2nd, 4 points back of Vegas for 3rd. Up next, a Friday afternoon game against the Anaheim Ducks. Kind of like the Sharks, the Ducks have been playing okay hockey of late. They did recently have a 3-game winning streak. They did win their last game against Seattle on Wednesday night, 5-2. And let's be honest, is anyone going to be really shocked if the Kings were to lose to the Ducks? If you are, you haven't really been paying attention. Look, I think the Kings are going to win this game. They've had a lot of success down in Anaheim of late. And they just coming off that great win, it would be really disappointing to see them have a letdown. But we'll see. That's the challenge for the Kings. Be consistent. Take this effort, take this performance, and carry it forward. The Kings haven't won 3 games in a row at any point this season. They need to get something going. Great win over the Jets, absolutely, but carry it forward. Now, as for the Ducks, 9-3 on the season. They have a very good-looking goalie, young goalie, who you may or may not have heard of, Lucas Dostal. And now his record is not impressive at 5-7-2, but his save percentage is amongst the best in the league, .922. He is a young goalie that can really do some nice things. The future in net in Anaheim, unfortunately, looks pretty bright. So who's going to be in net for the Kings? Also an interesting question. LA is going to play back-to-back games on Friday and Saturday. Friday, afternoon game in Anaheim. Saturday, an evening game at home against the Ottawa Senators. So I'm assuming that we will see the NHL debut of Eric Portillo in one of those games. Which one? I'm not sure. I would guess he'll play at home and Riddick would play on the road, but we'll see. As far as the Ducks, Troy Terry is their leader in points and goals, 15 points and 6 goals on the season. Kings have been a good road team this year, but are looking to snap a mini 3-game skid away from home in this game in Anaheim, where the Kings have been very successful of late. The Kings have won 9 of the last 10 freeway face-off matchups, including 4 of the last 5 down in Orange County against the Ducks. Face-off is set for 12:30 p.m. LA time. I do have to apologize for telling you that the Jets-Kings game started at 7:30. In fact, it started at 7. I actually missed the Kings' first goal because of that, so I hope you didn't as well. Fortunately, I could rewind and go back to the start of the game, but I'm going to the penalty box for that. I apologize. The game will be televised locally on the FanDuel Sports Network, nationally on ESPN+. You can hear the game on the 710 ESPN app. So I did want to mention this. Wednesday, Kings Jets. It was hockey fights, cancer night at Crypto.com Arena. The NHL and all the teams do a great job with that. It was great to see. And I want to give a shout out to a close friend of mine, Mark Crawford, who's fighting cancer and undergoing chemotherapy. Lots of prayers and good wishes to Mark, my friend, and also anyone out there who is fighting against cancer or has a loved one fighting against cancer, from me personally to you. And of course, happy Thanksgiving. It is my favorite holiday. Food, family, and football. Not necessarily in that order. No annoying songs. You don't have to buy anyone presents. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. And feels that the turkey is going to taste a little bit better after that Kings big win. But I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Friday, we'll recap that Kings-Ducks game and have our Kings weekly fan feedback show. Should be an interesting week with the loss of the Sharks and the win over the Jets. Anything on your mind about the LA Kings after a wild couple of games, questions, comments, it's your chance to sound off. You can send an email to lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section, which is great. We'd love you to stay interactive with the show by following us on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go enjoy your turkey. Have a great Thanksgiving. And as always, go Kings, go.